Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Lookout. Today's the 13th of July. Sorry, today is the 13th of September, and we're covering the Mosquito Fire. It's a really big day on the Mosquito Fire, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have had a really hard day. I watched the live helicopter footage of the fire burning up into Forest Hill, and I just thought, man, how awful. How awful watching this. And so one thing we don't do here on Lookout is we don't show videos of people's houses burning. We don't show a lot of pictures of people's burnt stuff. So if you just watched the fire burning in your town, I'm sorry. It's really hard, and it's tough stuff. So we're going to tell you what we've got. We're watching kind of real time as the IR plane is flying back down to Sacramento. They spent the last couple hours flying over Forest Hill, and then they took a lap out around the kind of upper part of the fire that's burning intensely to the east. So two big things happened today. The fire jumped the river below Forest Hill and ran up into Forest Hill, and also the fire kind of blew up in the canyons on the east side of the fire. So I'm going to kind of jump right in here. We want to kind of cover the big picture, but we also know that people are desperate to kind of know exactly what we know. So what we know is on this map, the black is kind of what just burned, and the fire jumped the river down here and burned up real quickly up to the top of the hill, up Dardanelle Creek, basically. So here's Todd Valley over here. Here's Forest Hill. So this mapping is about an hour old. And we'll just come over here. Fire, as of an hour ago, hadn't really got to any structures in Todd Valley. It was kind of still kind of coming up out of the canyon in the Oaks. So we're coming kind of here. We're going to be looking right up at Forest Hill High School. And I think that they're trying to do some firing. I don't know exactly what's going on. I mean, when I see a finger of fire like that, I usually think it's a firing operation where they punched in a dozer line and they're putting fire on the ground. And this is one of those situations where you're just like, you don't want to put fire on the ground and strand someone else's place on the other side of the fire, but also you have to do something. So put fire on the ground here. They've been fighting fire intensely right up against the edge of town here. And as of 6:30, fire hadn't crossed the road in Forest Hill. So that's kind of our freshest intel, is if you look over here at the high school and the old Sill Mill site, isn't it? Fire hadn't crossed the road here. All right. So before this blow up, the fire was carried down this ridge and in a firing operation that was done a couple days ago. So that had held. And so the fire now, this fire isn't, if they pick it up here, it's not going to it can't go through this burned area. So the fire spotted. We don't have fresh mapping. They came and mapped this intense burn this afternoon. But basically the fire, I think, had burned pretty much down to the river here. But they got some up canyon winds this afternoon. I got some questions from people saying, why did they fire in the wind, etc. Often, usually people just don't have a lot of flexibility in when you have to fire. The fire forces your hand. No one really wants to fire under adverse conditions. And so they had to finish this firing operation because the fire over the past couple of days has been established from its own natural spread, not from the firing operation itself, has been spreading down on the lower slope. And each night with the down canyon winds, it's pushing down canyon. So they don't have the flexibility of not firing this, because if they don't, the fire will hook around below them. So that's just kind of what happened. The fire, the wind. These canyons are tight, south-facing slopes are dry, and when fires cross and established on the bottom of a south-facing slope. We call that a slope reversal, and it's what happens. And regarding the firing up here, one thing I want to say about the current situation is, even though it was a little breezy today, I'm going to jump here real quick to some imagery. So that before we jump out of here, fires up to the road in Georgetown or in Forest Hill. Huge number of firefighters out here fighting to save whatever they can. Sun's going down, it's getting cooler, moisture conditions are moderating, and that's what it is. And we're waiting right now for some new intel to come in. That we know the plane just flew, and so we want to see what's happening on the east side of the fire. Here's we use the flight radar app, and we can see that the plane flew out of SAC, flew around Forest Hill, flew the upper part of the fire, and came back. And on the way back, they upload their imagery. So we're just waiting for that. But what we want to talk about kind of real quick is just what happened today. You can see the clearing here, and you can see this moisture from this water vapor imagery is showing that's the remnants of the hurricane. So those sat over us for the last couple of days, and they cleared out today. And so you see we just have all this clear air. It's a lot drier air that's moved in behind that moisture, and that allowed the fire to breathe. So we talked about the other day how the fire's just kind of capped with smoke and kind of suffocating under this chimney or a damper, right? So the damper opened today. Everything lifted out, air quality got really good in the valley, and the fire blew up. And so if we look a little closer in here, you can just see the two heads of the fire here, the spot fire and then the main body of the fire. So any minute now we should be getting that, but you can see a really large area of heat here on the east side of the fire. Here's a time progression of the Forest Hill blow up. And so in the morning, you can see here's the last little moisture clearing out. This is all done burning, basically. And then here's the spot. So around 2 o'clock, it jumped, and it just came hammering up out of there. So that helicopter footage is pretty remarkable. As terrible as it is, just to see the firefight going on and to see firefighters having to try to put out fires in people's personal junkyards. Here's another view of just looking at the eastern part of the fire. This is the Bald Mountain cam, and we're looking at starting at about 1 p.m. This wide front of the eastern part of the fire all started really going at once. And then over the course of the afternoon, it put up this incredible show of punching through these lenticular clouds. And lenticulars are a sign of high winds aloft that move that smoke out and just help the fire ventilate. So this is kind of the kind of stuff that weather people will study for years. But I mean, just that kind of terrible beauty of it across such a wide front. Anyway, we're going to, we don't know of any other spread other than these two areas, this area here, and then this area out in here. So I'm going to have to take a minute here and switch screens and see if we've got any new mapping yet. Looks like we do. So give me a second to punch up this new data and see what we got. All right. Yeah, we got it. Okay. All right. Well, all I can say on this is just, hang on. Looks like I got to move something here. Okay, hang on. It's pretty incredible, as a fire scientist, having access to this real-time information. So, I mean, the plane just flew a few minutes ago, and they're already sharing. So, we're just going to look at where the fire was yesterday, where it is now. This is our progression map. So blue is kind of like going back to the 6th, 7th, 8th is yellow. And then we've just, for each day or so, we've got a different color. So you can see this kind of steady growth out to the east. And we've been talking about that. So we can see flying up from Forest Hill, no new growth on this whole north flank up towards Michigan Bluff. And one thing I want to say before we leave Forest Hill is when you looked at that fire boiling up out of there, there's, so I do a lot of prescribed fire. I'm just about done getting my state prescribed fire burn boss qualification. And we pay really close attention to the fuel moistures and the weather. And so even during wildfires, we're really interested in the weather conditions. So I just ran the weather for Forest Hill, and we could basically do a prescribed burn if the larger fuels weren't so dry. We could be burning today in this landscape. I know that sounds crazy, but we've got a fine dead fuel moisture of 8%, and we've got a probability of ignition of 40. Right. So what that means, the probability of ignition is really important when we burn, because it's how likely it is that you're going to have spot fires. So one thing that you'll notice today is that fire ripped up out of the canyon, and it didn't spot over Forest Hill Road. It didn't anywhere. Or if it did, they caught them. Right. So a week ago, it was 104 degrees and 10% relative humidity. And the probability of ignition was 100. So what probability of ignition is it tells you, like, if you went and stood out in a field and you flipped 100 matches on the ground, a week ago you would have started 100 fires. Today, if you throw 10 matches on the ground, only 4 of them are gonna not go out before they start the grass on fire. So that's when we talk about fire weather and fuel moistures. Today, our temperature maxed out at about 78 degrees, and our relative humidity was about 25%, those are conditions that we would go and burn under. Like I said, we wouldn't do it right now because the bigger sticks are too dry. But so that's why the fire didn't spot today over the road, along with firefighting. But that's just to kind of clue you in that, like, there's a lot that changes quickly, and there's opportunities we get to do prescribed burning. Anyway, 40% pig at 40. So that's really helping the firefighters. And now that the sun's going out, that's really going to help them keep the fire out of Todd Valley. So a week ago, if this would have happened, this fire would be headed for Highway 80, right? And we would have lost probably all of Forest Hill. So just timing's everything in fire, right? So cruising up from Forest Hill along Chicken Hawk Ridge Road, still no spread across there. There's like this little spot here that's from a few days ago. So firing operations have continued up this road, but the remarkable thing now today is, now that we move up in here, is we're just going to measure. This fire really spread today out to the east, across the whole landscape, right? So this portion of the fire here ran 2 miles. One and a half miles. Mile and a half. Mile and a half. Okay, so what's that mean? Mile and a half. It spread a mile and a half. It burned a lot of area. It's they're saying it's 58,000 acres now. I don't remember what it was this morning, but that's a lot of growth. But one thing it tells you is it burned a mile and a half, and yesterday the fire was 35 miles from Truckee, right? So we'd have to have, over 20 days of the same spread for the fire to get over to Truckee. So that's kind of comforting, right? We kind of knew that this was going to happen. We kind of knew that this fire is going to keep pushing east. But, and we also talked about, how this private timberland was probably going to get smoked. Looks like it got smoked. Some of it. They kind of had a tentative plan of potential ways to put hand line and dozer line through here. But those aren't going to happen now unless it rains. Anyway, that's your spread to the east. That's your spread into Forest Hill. That's about all we have for you on this. I'll answer some questions. What I'm not going to answer is questions that are like, how come the team did this? How come the team did that? How come they let the fire cross the river? How come they didn't fly tankers earlier? Those are all stuff we're not going to get into. We never really have all the facts here. We just see the big picture and the imagery and everything else. But we're not going to second guess tactics. And we're not going to, like I said, no one's going to go throw a bunch of fire on the ground for no good reason. Like, the fire forces people's hands. So we're going to do something a little differently. I've got Ryan Cowper is my moderator, and I'm not going to read the questions myself. I can't really keep up. So right on the table, are you using the new laptop? Live stream seems less laggy. Yes, sir. Our buddy who prefers to remain nameless is an incredible person, came down yesterday and brought me a really nice laptop and spent the whole afternoon helping me get it set up. And then I migrated all my work over to it today and using my other laptop as a server for the stream. And that was hairy, but we got it done today just in time. And a little nerve-wracking to use it here for this first time with all y'all watching. But yeah, it's working great. And it's a little complicated. But I really, 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 really appreciate the help from him. And also a whole bunch of people who sent me ideas and kind of volunteered their knowledge. So far so good. Hope it keeps working. What's the potential of the fire reaching Mosquito? I'm going to have to look for that. I don't know exactly where Mosquito is, but I'll come back to that. What's my opinion on the information presented in the daily ops meetings? I feel it's presented in much too optimistic way. Well, it's all, you have to realize that the public information officer works for the incident commander, and incident commander works for the director, basically, of CAL FIRE when it comes down to it. And most of the stuff that you see has to be kind of pushed up the food chain and checked for kind of political palatability. And so the public information officers and everyone who's working to give you information, they're working within a bureaucracy, and they're basically, they're government information officers. So they don't have a lot of flexibility to be candid. And everyone's afraid to say something that's going to be interpreted the wrong way and everything else. So they don't like to talk about failure, I'll tell you that. But luckily today, they really did a good job of catching that thing and keeping it from crossing the road so far. So I don't have too much trash to talk about PIOs. They have a tough job. And I don't want to be adversarial to them or to the firefighting. We want to kind of tell the stories they're not telling, but it's kind of a fine line we have to draw it here. What's the possibility of it reaching Truckee? Like I said, it burned about 2 miles a day. So unless it keeps doing what it did today for 2 weeks straight, I encourage people to do their own math, because I really don't want to be the guy that says it's going to go to Truckee and freak everyone out. And I don't want to be the guy that says it's not going to go to Truckee and then it goes to Truckee. So I'm just going to give you guys distances and kind of facts and context, and hopefully, time will tell. The new fire on the east flank outside the main fire, was it man-caused? I don't know. I don't know exactly what you're talking about. This is Tay. I don't know. What type of work will be done at night in Foresthill? A lot of work. No one's going to go home. The people that are out there are going to fight fire, and they're going to secure that whole edge. Well, can you do more videos about the fire history of California this winter? Yes. That's Case or Kai's. Eric says, can we expect the burn scars to help slow the expansion of the fire? I'm hoping to go up there tomorrow and actually get some footage on the ground. I'm waiting to hear back from the team. And so we'll report on that. So far, let's look at you know, the fire today pushed 2 miles here, and it pushed only like a half mile here, and so into this 13 scar. So, you know, I guess if you look at like here where it ran in an area adjacent to the burn, it ran more like a mile and a half, and here it ran, you know, less. So far, it's maybe it's slowing it down, but it's also coming downhill. So, you know, next couple of days will tell. Obviously, it's burning well in areas that haven't had fire for a long time, that where the topography funnels it, right? So that's a big deal here, is the topography and how this fire was not only kind of sheltered from the prevailing wind, but it was also having to kind of burn side hill or downhill, where the fire here was able to run with the wind up the hill, kind of what we call alignment. Same with here, you know, the fire pushed up this slope here. So burn scars help. But like, you know, there's a big chunk here that just went. No burn scars. That's, I think, worth mentioning, is just that oftentimes we have a fire in the landscape and we think it's bad. We think it's a bad thing, and we put it out. And then that fire is what stops the next big fire. So in some ways, by putting out every fire, we're leaving these big puzzle pieces to fill in. And, you know, we can jump up to the Klamath River and see that they've had fire over everything, and now they've got smaller chunks to burn, right? So if you look at an area out here that hasn't had any fire, you know, like here in the Yuba River, we've been really good at putting out fires. We've got air tankers in Nevada City, and we've got this huge area with no burn scars. It just means that when we do have a big fire out here, there's not going to be anything that buys us that advantage that it'll run into and slow down. Someone says it looks, Powdork says, what's my take on the American fire footprint? And they said they didn't think that there's any salvage logging done in there. There was some. Gotta find it. Some of that stuff may be lost in the migration. Here we go, forest industry owner. So these yellow sections are owned by private timber companies, and the private companies salvage their chunks. So yeah, most of the American fire didn't have salvage. The areas that did are fairly denuded and will be places that fire slows down, but unfortunately, you know, fire's going to just move around those in the areas that weren't salvaged. And a lot of this land didn't have a lot to salvage as it was. And also you can see an interesting thing here in American fire is just that a lot of this land, a lot of the trees survived in here. So when this fire is over, we're going to see a lot of trees survived also. And I think it's worth mentioning that, like, hey, this fire really ripped, you know, from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m., 5 hours, but that leaves 19 hours a day for like this part here to back down into the canyon, and for this to kind of back in, and this, you know, so a lot of what burns here at night is going to have, especially that's backing down the hill, is going to have beneficial fire severity. And as the days get shorter and night gets longer, you've got more and more proportion of the burn period of the day that is low severity. And so maybe, you know, a month from now, you've only got from 3 p.m. till 5:30 or something where there's enough sunshine and kind of warmness for the fire to really rip. So that is one good thing about later season fires, is that if they're not getting pushed by winds, you get quite a bit of good fire out of them. So, you know, I know a lot of people think that you shouldn't talk about good fire during fire season when people's homes are burning. But I think that's the time that we really need to talk about it, is that this fire will be achieving ecological outcomes that, like, a lot of this land out here is going to be better off after the fire than it was before, because it's going to, you know, and yeah, this American fire footprint, it doesn't look great, right? There's a lot of brush and stuff, which, you know, brush is not good if you're a forester, but brush is good if you're a deer or animal that eats deer, or anything that, you know, like, obviously we don't want all of our forests to be brush, but I gotta find my fires here and turn them off. All right, so you zoom in on the American fire, burned a large area, but when it gets down to it, there's still a lot of trees out here, and these trees that survived the American fire, very likely a lot of them are going to survive this fire, because they are the resilient trees. You can see that a lot of trees got killed here by the fire too. It looks like this isn't private timberland out here either. Anyway, we're gonna jump on to the next stuff. Comment on the Dutch fire, please. Okay, Dutch fire burned today, and I think it's wrapped. Burned up here by Dutch Flat, and the bad thing was that this fire took off right when the spot fire kind of started to take off. This is Highway 80, and the fire made a push. They haven't mapped it for a few hours, but the fire made a kind of wind-driven push here, spotted a bunch, but it was pretty much from the get-go already 50% contained by the freeway. And it comes back to that idea of probability of ignition today being low, that we didn't have more spotting, and that these small fires that started spots couldn't get established enough to start more. And, like I said, if this had been a week ago, this fire probably would be a major urban interface disaster. But today, even though they lost a lot of their tankers to Foresthill to save Foresthill, they're able to catch it. So I think Dutch is done. Bunch of questions just got deleted. Did I go to Chico State? Yeah, I went to Chico State for geography. And they had a map making program there, which I think I was a sophomore, and I looked in the catalog and I saw that you could get a degree in map making, and I thought, man, that's amazing. That's cool. And that's what happened. Why is Newsome encouraging landowners to do controlled burning? It is too dangerous for non-firefighters and advanced knowledge, like you're describing. I disagree. Is it vehemently or vehemently? Either way, I totally disagree that it's too dangerous for non-firefighters and advanced knowledge, because you're assuming that landowners can't use a thermometer and a smartphone. We can do it. So basically, you should look up the prescribed burn associations and see what we're doing, and watch some of the videos we have on our YouTube channel about burning. There's large windows of time in the winter. Like, we're not advocating anyone goes out and burns right now in a drought when it's dry. We're advocating that people burn when it's safe, and that's what we're doing. And we've got people taking weather, and we got people writing burn plans, and we've got a whole training program set up to train new burn bosses. People like myself who've got almost 30 years of experience of burning are getting paid to teach people, and it has to happen. The firefighters, you can't wait until December and then expect CAL FIRE to go out and burn. Like, those folks come December and January, like, they need to see their families. They need to just have a life. So you can't expect them to work, a 9-month fire season and then come out and burn all winter. So if the landowners can't do it, if private people can't do it, if we can't do it ourselves, it's not getting done. That's just pure and simple. So it's not just Newsome encouraging landowners. It's a lot of us. It's a lot of us who know that people got to get right with fire, and no better way to get right with fire than spending time with it. So that's what these PBAs are about. It's about giving people access to fire. Like, fire's the best teacher, and you spend some time with fire. People, all you see on TV is these big flames. And then all night tonight, that fire is going to be good fire that they're putting out. That fire is going to be on the ground, burning up oak leaves, and maybe torching up here and there. And you're not going to see a lot of video of that. So if you're a journalist out there, please take more pictures of small flames, because the photographers that are out there today, they're gonna share like the 5 pictures they have of the biggest flames. They're not going to share the pictures they had of the fire on the ground. So go out and do some burning. You'll learn a lot about what fire looks like when it's not being amplified by fear-based programming. What's today? Expansion on the west side and upcoming weather changes change the chances of a westerly middle fork expansion. I don't think it does. I think that they're gonna wrap it up, and we can jump back in there. Any mountain lion? That was David Stryker. Sorry, I'm trying to tell people's names. David Stryker was asking the one about the westward expansion. Denise, hey Denise. With the new mandatory evacuations towards Icehouse Road, do you think they're concerned that the King Fire won't slow the fire? Okay, so here's the King Fire. Out in here. And then you can see the salvage logging out in here. And then this ice house over here. I don't know. I think they've been pretty conservative about evacuations and kind of not wanting it to be a rush thing. So I feel like this big, we saw a fire last week that burned into similar plantations, and it brought a huge advantage. The fire just like, it was really easy for them to put it out once it got into these kind of recent salvage. So I guess the question is it going to get up here and flank around here and out? They don't have a lot of options to fight the fire out in here unless they hold it on this ridge. And so I think that you're probably right that there's a potential here. You know, the King Fire, let's turn on the King Fire real quick. The thing that was crazy about the King Fire was just that it made this incredible 15-mile run in one day up through here and burned a lot of this really hot. And here's a map of the severity of the King Fire. So we do, after the fire, we take imagery from before the fire and after the fire, and we compare it and we analyze it, and we can kind of characterize the severity of the fire. And all these red areas are places that were basically like black sticks and dead brush. So what that means is just that a ton of this fuel got consumed. So when you look at that, so here's our fire here. Our fire is going to burn into this red zone that really, if this whole area had underburned and kind of killed a lot of small trees but left a lot of bigger trees, and you had a lot of, it's been 8 years. So if you'd had a lot of time for all that stuff to fall apart, that'd be one thing. But this burned really hot and it consumed a lot of what was there. So I feel like that is a hopeful thing that then after that, there was a ton of salvage logging done out there too. So, like we say, like when you see the shape of a fire on the landscape, like this polygon of the King Fire, it's not a monolithic thing. It's not like you draw a shape and then everything in there is the same. So like all this patchwork of salvage logging, like that, and even out in here, like the brush is really sparse through this hot burned area. So it's definitely going to slow the fire down. I don't think we're going to see the kind of explosive runs like that we saw. If we look at the big runs today, they're burning in places where you just have this dark green, heavy forest, or you have the topography funneling. So I do think that it's going to, it's really going to slow the fire down, I think. But I can see why they'd be cautious about it. Because I think, we're all living with the memory of the Dixie Fire and the Caldor Fire last year that just really spanked us. They just kept spotting over our dozer lines. One thing I would say is just when you look at the kind of higher humidity and cooler temperatures, like last year when the Dixie was really kicking our butts, it was because we had really high probabilities of ignition. So if it stays cool and the humidity stays up, we're not going to have as many problems with spotting. Our dozer lines are going to hold better. There's been a lot of thinning out here. Well, I mean, there's clear cuts, obviously. But when you patch that all together, like, there's old dozer line from the previous King Fire, too. So I think things could be much more dire for the threat to the south, personally. You look at the spread of the King Fire, how it ran to the north. You look at the spread of the Caldor Fire. Like, we haven't had a lot of fire history here with fires really pushing hard to the south, crossing multiple drainages. So Caldor kind of, sorry. So the question is the fire going to move out this way? And I mean, it's certainly kind of heading that direction, but I think the King Fire is going to slow it down. And that's the data I've got. Okay. Thanks for the question. Comments on the big trees. I made a comment last night about this, and then I went to bed and I was like, well, I really didn't really know what I was talking about there. And a buddy of mine got a hold of me today whose fiance works for the Forest Service, and it's been kind of one of her projects to make this more resilient. So we put out a retraction this morning because I was saying like, well, this is going to burn up, and it's going to be our fault because we didn't get more fire on the ground in there. Sounds like people have been doing a lot of work, so I'm sorry that I misrepresented that. And we'll have to see what happens. Like we said before, if they just kind of did a little bit of work in here and you still have a fire that blows up and makes a 2-mile run up this kind of favorable topography, it might not make a difference. So time will tell there. And if the work that gets done helps save the big trees, we'll tell that story. And if it doesn't, we won't gloat, I promise. Anthony says, sorry if this has been asked, but knowing the myopic vision of environmentalists, shouldn't they be responsible for the amount of fuel too? Well, there's plenty of blame to go around, right? Like we, as a society, put out all the fires for the last 100 years. And then the environmentalists, I think, I kind of don't like that term. My family got kind of tarred as environmentalists just because my dad didn't think the Forest Service should spray 2,4-D on brush fields to grow trees. And so, when people use that as a bad word, it's like there's a few people that really kind of ruin it for everyone else. And I don't buy the fact that if there hadn't been, I just don't buy the fact that they're all to blame. The Forest Service has had plenty of failure without getting sued. We can talk about that in other videos. So keep following the lookout. If you want to talk about that question, I want us to kind of move beyond that these kind of labels though, because I grew up. I was kind of raised by hippie wolves and loggers, and we just didn't really like call each other that. We all got along, and so I will use the word tree hugger once in a while, but you might catch me hugging a tree too. Mark Sorensen, is there accountability of fire bosses who decided to put the fire on the ground and it ended poorly? Well, that's a paradox, right? Because if I put fire on the ground as a burn boss and it goes poorly, damn right, I'm going to lose my house. I'm going to lose everything, right? So I'd say there's some internal accountability, but no one loses their job when a firing operation goes bad on a fire. They might not get invited back as a division supervisor, but that's a tricky conversation. I have some friends who've ended up, being incident commanders and kind of top of the food chain. And after the Iron 44 disaster where I think 8 or 10 firefighters died in a helicopter crash in Trinity Alps, I asked my friend who was an operations section chief, like, how come there's no accountability for the ops chief who decided that we were going to fly crews into this ridge in the middle of nowhere to put out a fire that was burning into the wilderness? And he really didn't like that question. And no one really likes that idea that that these folks should be held accountable. And I feel like the ops people didn't create the problem, right? They didn't start the fire. They didn't, decide that we were going to stop letting fires burn or that we were going to cut all the big fire-resistant trees. And so you can't really just hold them accountable. Obviously, like, we want people to make good tactical decisions, but we also have to realize that people are handed really bad sets of circumstances and expected to make something happen. So like this firing today, why did they fire down there? Why, when it was going to be windy? They didn't have a choice. So I'll jump into that on the map in a second. Any updates on the Mosquito Fire at Stumpy Meadows? And sorry just to linger on the map. I jump back and forth and then I forget which screen I'm on. So here's Stumpy Meadows out here. and the fire kind of spreading up on the other side of the Rubicon. So no new spread on the Stumpy Meadows side of the Rubicon. Okay, Ryan said was telling me that David Stryker's today's growth on the west side changed the chances of Middle Fork. I already answered that. No, I don't think that the fire is going to move down the Middle Fork. But so there's this dozer line here that was kind of like the backup plan, and I'm pretty sure that this will get held. That's going to be they'll probably be firing this tonight. Now they have got to kind of keep pace here with, this has got some time now to cool off. So as this cools off, unless the same thing happens tomorrow, the good thing is that this is all fired now and it's got all night to cool off and tomorrow morning too. So, I mean, the same thing could happen tomorrow, but I think it's unlikely. And I think that they're going to fire this ridge and hold it. So that's my hope. And I mean, it's going to be tough up in here, but they've got a ton of resources. They've got good overnight conditions and highly motivated group of people. Dion Pearson says, do burn scars with low vertical regrowth, grass, brush, baby trees typically cause faster fire runs? In other words, are there disadvantages to burn scars to defend against big fires? It kind of changes over time. And so if you've got, an option of fighting fire in dense, like 100-foot tall second growth timber versus 10-foot tall scrubby brush, you're probably going to pick the scrubby brush. It's really different in each fuel type and each kind of time interval. And that's kind of one thing we try to kind of parse apart here is like, is 6 years enough? Is 7 years? Like, how long is this good for? Is there anything to be concerned about with the growth of the fire at Stumpy Meadows, says Rebecca. I don't think it's at the top of my list of things to worry about. I think that this side here, that they really need to get this tied in. And just coming back over here to Stumpy Meadows, the fire spread up the canyon is going to be an issue, but as we're going to see, we're going to find out right now about how an 8-year-old burn scar holds up. And I'm thinking that it's going to buy us some real advantages, and especially with this weather we've got. Lewis's Bike Shop asks about mountain lion experiences. I've seen some lions. Nothing kind of crazy. Saw a lion that had a collar on and he looked really embarrassed about it. How many miles from the fire to Alpine Meadows at this point? It's like 25 or 30. What kind of classes do you offer for landowners, if any? Company I work for is owned by Firestorm, and we have all kinds of training. We have chainsaw safety training. We have basic firefighter. We have pump classes to teach you how to use fire pumps and calculate, friction losses in pipe or in hose. We have firing boss classes for, we have advanced firefighter, single resource boss. So a lot of fire qualifications. And we're helping train through the TREX, which is the Prescribed Fire Training Exchange. We're helping train people on prescribed burning, kind of all over. I teach in Nebraska. I've taught out in South Carolina. We teach in the Klamath Mountains, and this year we're doing around in Butte County. That's mainly for the leaders of the prescribed burn associations. So yeah, check out firestormfire.com or send me a message. There's an email link for me on the Lookout. And but yeah, we're really interested in teaching people. Any concern for the hydropower plant along the river? I don't know. That was Sherry. Sydney says, is the 15-mile Kingfire run the biggest run you've ever seen? No, it's not, actually. I worked on the Cedar Fire in Southern California, and that fire ran about 30 miles in 15 hours. I guess that I've seen in person. I saw the Kingfire run, but it was from Red Bluff, because it was, even from Red Bluff, you could see the Kingfire column being 15 miles wide. Seen the Ponderosa Fire run 25,000 acres. It wasn't 15 miles. I've seen some really big fire runs in Idaho, including one that burned up the fire camp we were in. Any advice for GIS grads looking for a job? Find a specialty that is something that you're interested in. If you just try to get a job just doing GIS, you're going to end up like digitizing parcels or, some sort of mind-numbing slave labor often. So if you're interested in fire, try to learn about fire and get a fire GIS job. If you're interested in fish, learn about fisheries, but don't just be a GIS person. Be a GIS person that applies your technical skills to something you're already interested in. Can I provide an update on the Cedar Creek fire? I got to tell you, between trying to rebuild my entire office tech system and watching this fire blow up, I didn't check it. But as far as I could tell, I took a glance at it this morning, and I think it got rained on, and it's not moving. Josiah Rowe, anyone want to meet at the California Club in Auburn for beer? Lookout happy hour. Sounds good. After you got all liquored up, go to our PayPal, please. All right. That was Bunny Lebowski. Right on. ST says in BC, Canada, they're saying that the hardwood undergrowth slows the fire spread as hardwoods hold more moisture. Also, old growth forests actually resist fire. What do you think? Oaks are awesome, and I think looking at this area around Georgetown, when you think of like where most people live in California, people have always lived where there's oaks. And this looks to me like black oak, quite a bit of black oak. I might be wrong. If you live there, you can tell me if you got black oak. These look like black oak to me. Black oak are awesome. They're kind of like a natural fuel break. I mean, in here it's hard because it looks like they're mixed in with chamise, but black oak are great. And a lot of what we've called like fuels management over the years, I think we could have probably called oak restoration, because when you don't have fire, you don't let fires burn, and you don't cut down all the little small trees, the conifers take over and shade out the oaks, and the oaks die. And the oaks are really important food for turkeys and for people. And oak litter is fluffy, and it dries out quickly after rain. So it makes it really easy to burn in the winter. So if you got black oak in your yard and a bunch of little pine and fir coming up, best thing you can do is whack that conifer. And the more black, when Paradise burned, everyone put this bumper sticker on their car with a pine tree on it and a heart. But the pine trees are kind of what killed Paradise, all this kind of fluffy, flammable pine needles. I think that the I Love Paradise sticker should have an oak tree on it, because living in oak woodlands is a lot safer than living in pine needle land. Letters and Words says, I'll come out and help anyone in Colfax area do a control burn. I'm not an expert, just a helping hand. And it's important to get some people out there that know what they're doing, and then get some people that don't know anything, and you can make it happen. You just need a few people that really have a solid handle on it. And the burning we're doing up here, CAL FIRE sends out some engines because they don't trust us yet, and we're glad they're there. If anything, we want them to come back when they're off duty and burn with their neighbors. Vicky Lewis says, I have some PTSD from the FLIR images from Dixie, and I agree. Like those kind of psychedelic webcams. I'll put one up here. They're gnarly. Like they make it look like the end of the world, and we joke about it, but it's kind of not that funny, I think. I don't know how to make it pop up, but I mean, the webcams are amazing, right? The mainstream media is a joke and really doesn't go in detail. Yeah, I agree, man. Like, screw those people. Why do we give them our attention at all? Like, they're not doing anyone any service by traumatizing everyone over and over. I mean, this fire now, as it burns kind of out into where people can't see it, they're going to keep playing the big flame photos for as long as they can, even if the fire around Foresthill is out. So know that if you see like some footage in the next couple of days of like big flames around Foresthill, they're probably archival footage, unless they say differently. Because like once they get done knocking it down tonight, like there's not going to be a lot of big flames. Denise Varner, seasonal burns are necessary. The tribes did this before statehood. Misdirected politics, and EPA stopped all that. Now tribes are being consulted. Yeah, I'm glad for that. Tay says, ran into cougar hooting owls. We both spooked and ran in opposite directions. I've tracked cougar and put the color shame on them. Wildlife tech's a great assignment. That sounds awesome. Jen Ray. Hey, Jen. So appreciated. Thank you. Hey, thank you too. So when mine owner operator thanks me too, I got them nuggets. All right. Send me a couple nuggets, eh? I watch the vids every day. Alan Schmidt, live stream is the way it's meant to be. And Vicky Lewis says, confirming it looks smooth and tight. Thanks to everyone that's thanking me. I appreciate it. It helps motivate me for sure. It's a little crazy to be kind of have an audience that's all kind of in deep trauma at the same time. But I'm hoping that I can help you all out. And someone says moderate wind in Tahoe all day. That's cause it's there. Clear most of the day, and then Truckee got smoked out. Yeah, it's going to be bad overnight, I think. I shared some smoke management stuff last night, some kind of smoke resources. And I think Ryan put them on the blog today. Let me just look real quick. If you haven't already checked out the Lookout website, it's kind of a good place to go. Yeah, so we'll throw some links up there. We'll have a morning report. We'll throw some stuff up there. I have a trip I need to do on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and I'm not going to be able to live stream. And so Ryan's going to be updating the blog, and he's been making all our maps. That's great. I know it's going to be a tough time to leave if the fire's really pushing, but I've got something that I really can't not do. So check the Lookout in the mornings. Oftentimes we'll update it when we get midday intel. So if you check back, we throw in new stuff. Okay. Well, I thank Ryan for helping moderate this all, because the other day my mouse wheel was broken actually, so I was trying to even just keep up with these things and stuff. I'm sorry I haven't shouted out to all the people that gave me the little the cool tips in here. I appreciate you all, and if I hadn't called you out by name, I'm sorry. But we do appreciate you. Laurel says hardwoods grow back after fires, and they come back from roots. And what I'd say is, if you're out there and your property did burn, don't be in a hurry to cut down your oaks, your black oaks or any oaks, because they can look totally toast, and then they'll sprout out again. And once you cut them down, it takes a long time to get them back. So that's the deal. Oaks are the name of the game. So I'm just going to close out here with flying a map. I know I see a ton of you guys on there, and don't want to leave you hanging, but kind of need to bail out here pretty quick. We'll keep doing these. I think I'm not going to have a lot of information you guys in the morning, so I'm going to stop doing the morning briefings for now, just because, like I said, I got a job and kids to take to school, and I'm hoping tomorrow they go out to this fire actually and be gone all day. So my goal will be to get back and get you a live stream with some interviews and some footage from the field. But I might be out late, so we'll try to figure that out, even if I'm live streaming from my phone. If not, Ryan's going to really keep on top of our intel, and same when I'm gone. So I could answer questions all night, but I got to stop. So appreciate your support. If you're affected, if you've got a hard time going on, you're not alone, and it's what we all got to go through here. We got to kind of do this together. I don't know. How do I